Hey folks, MasakoX here. Now when it comes to this video, there are multiple ways that you can interpret this video. One thing it's definitely not though, is revealing juicy gossip or giving you information that isn't already out there. This is purely conjecture and going off of what we've already been given from the makers of the show and of course Shueisha. Apologies to those thinking that I would be giving you something hot off the presses or something like that, or a major exclusive for the channel, but it's rather imperative that I made that clear right now before we proceeded. If you're still there, well, I appreciate that and thank you for your time. So let's resume. This title that I oppose to you can be interpreted in different manners, and I wish to discuss that with you today, as to the purpose of Dragon Ball Super Superhero, the latest movie that is coming up from Toei, as well as getting a pretty good understanding as to what the plot for this movie could be, from what we've got from a little while ago and before from last year. Despite the fact that we didn't get the third trailer that we hoped for during the Dragon Ball Battle Hour events a couple of weeks ago, we still got a fair amount of information as to what we could expect going forward, and what we will not get, or at least we hope we will not get. And yes, to get out of the way, yes of course, Goten and Trunks are in the movie, and no, this is not a drill. I talked about this briefly in an initial thoughts video up top as to the plot, but here I wanted to cover it again for those who may have missed that first video, with a little bit more insight, a further extended plot summary, now that I've had some time to digest the material and come up with something new. I bet you thought I was going to say something else then, didn't you? Oh, stop it. Based on the unfinished clips that we had received from Toei and Bandai, we could start to piece together the basic plot for this upcoming movie. Something of which that we hadn't been quite able to do before now, since we really only had a couple of scenes and snippets and sequences on which to go off of. Granted, the updated content doesn't seem all that interesting, but it's a lot more curious than you think. Those clips and bits of animation are enough to get the gist of a basic narrative, at least according to me, and I hope you like it to start. However, can I get the feeling that based on the current status of the Red Ribbon Army in Age 784, that's the year that we do know that this movie is set in, based on what we've seen, they have managed to slowly rebuild themselves into a brand new organization, pivoting into a branch of business that Capsule Corp has little to no influence in, no competition: pharmaceuticals. However, their old roots are not quite dried up just yet. Red Ribbon still wants to prosper in this brave new world where cat deities are commonplace, and so, in order to do that, they need to truly take over the world, and the only way they can do that is to get rid of the Dragon Team, the people and organization and group who had taken down their group ages ago thanks to Son Goku, and had also recently thwarted Jiro's efforts. Though I bet they will point out that, oh, Jiro wasn't acting for them directly in the Android saga. No, he was merely operating out of his own sphere, a mad scientist from his own sub-lab or something like that. For all we knew, during that Android saga in Z, the Red Ribbon remains probably were working on this new business model in the background, whilst Jiro was doing his own thing, making our heroes think that, with Jiro gone, the last remains of the Red Ribbon Army would have been well and truly torn to shreds. Not so. That was a red ribbon herring. They can't rely on their own tech though to make robots without proper guidance, since they don't have a mad scientist anymore. And so the best thing they could do is to maybe look for the kind of minds that nobody would touch, or not exactly in the good books right now, or off the radar, unexpected. Enter Dr. Hedo, that kid from the trailer. He is a prodigious young scientist and engineer who has just got out of prison, and so the Red Ribbon are very keen to talk to him and give him a job. Hence we have that scene in the car where they're talking to him. And note the name of this scientist had pointed this out to me. Hedo and Gero are linked in nomenclature in Japanese. Gero is basically derived from the phrase to vomit, and Hedo is related somewhat to the antithesis of vomiting, antidotes to vomiting. Is perhaps Hedo the cure to Jiro's wacky inventions and insights? Well, we'll find out more in the movie proper for that detail, but for now, It's just a funny coincidence and a little bit of wordplay, as is common in Dragon Ball, and a nod to Jiro. After the Red Ribbon Bods here have talked him into working for them, they pick up on the fact that Hedo likes superheroes, and a particular one at that, because he's wearing the hoodie and all, he's wearing the merch. And you can also get merch at MasakoX.com, cheeky plug right here. They play on that childhood fascination extensively, I imagine. And thusly, they frame it that the Dragon Team are the biggest villains in the world, and that the only way they can be stopped is by Hedo's noble and inspirational insights and brain, and his skills in tech that can help them make some androids in which to stop them. They have the tools and the money, they just don't have the nous that Hedo does. Play on his ego. Hedo likes the idea of being a superhero, and has no clue that he's being played by these goons. This is what we can see with the mocked up images of Goku, Vegeta and Buu that we've seen in all the trailers now, them looking mean and angry. That's just there to make them look like bad guys. Something which happened in GT, a nod to when Pan, Goku and Trunks here were portrayed as baddies in that one little mini arc. A mean face equals bad. In any case, this then results in Hedo making Gamma 1 and 2, and they're charged with the eradication of the Dragon Team, starting with, seemingly, Piccolo, whilst he is meditating atop his newly built house and mailbox. Okay, it's not a castle, but it'll do. For now. Then we probably have a little bit of an interlude where Pan and Piccolo are training a little bit, most likely for the upcoming 25th World Martial Arts Tournament. And we are starting to see Pan getting to grips with Ki for the first time properly, not just that little goofy bit in Super. And Piccolo noting her potential before Gohan would come by to pick her up and take her home. Or, better yet, or more amusingly, she takes herself home by just flying away. Then we can have Piccolo meditating, like I said before, and that's when we see in the trailer Gamma 2 swoops in, fighting Piccolo, blowing up his house and mountain to figure out how strong Piccolo and the Dragon Team are. I bet that battle will be quite intense, and Gamma 2 might be on the back foot here, before being called back to base to not risk him being badly damaged or worse, destroyed. Then of course, we would have cutaways to Beerus's planet like we've seen in the trailers where Goku and Broly are training as some kind of interlude and maybe a subplot. Perhaps Broly is starting to get to grips with God Ki, or perhaps another way entirely of controlling his legendary Ikari powers more consistently, with Whis acting as some kind of celestial oversight perhaps. Beerus probably finds Broly interesting, but he's not willing to train him personally. Nevertheless, it's a different change of pace, and something that means that the cat doesn't have to get directly involved, and he will drink to that. So where does this all lead? Well, put simply, the entire plot will be about a huge misunderstanding. Gamma 1 and 2 have been programmed to stop the Dragon Team at the instruction and behest of the Red Ribbon Army, as well as Hedo's own beliefs and desire to be the greatest superhero in the world. There will be several clashes, of course, it's a Dragon Ball movie, like we see Gamma 1 and Gohan doing in the rain, before the robots find out perhaps that they're the bad guys all along. They got it wrong. This will lead to them facing a massive existential crisis, as well as Hedo accusing the Ribbons of leading him on too. But it's too late. The two robots will be fused together forcibly, and Hedo taken away to be locked up, and we get the ultimate big bad, in our opinion, Gamma Zero. This could be something that will visually look like a silver cell, also like in the suit that the Gammas wear. Perhaps the Red Ribbon Army's own interpretation of Jiro's early blueprints and models of Cell. Much like there is that commonly sourced image of Toriyama's prototypes for Cell's design. Perhaps we could get one of those here, recycled. And we all know that Toriyama likes to recycle his old designs. Gohan then has to resort to his ultimate powers, like we see in the main visual poster, to defeat the bad guy, and this then resorts to the Dragon Team of Earth, plus Vegeta, helping Gohan to get a team win, after of course with some funny antics of Fat Gotenks. Because that joke never gets old, right? Then what I'd like to see is Goku and Broly arriving to help themselves, but finding out that Gohan and the gang had already taken care of it. Goku would be proud of his son for doing this and say that he's really come on leaps and bounds recently, and that he feels the world would be safe with him around should Goku go for good in the future. I think that would be a nice way of passing the torch in a way, but not actually having to pass the torch because Goku's still profitable. I mean, hey, at least Goku's acknowledging that his eldest is a modicum of talent now in the battle department. So you see, that is how I would think this story would go down. Do you like it? Leave a comment, but we're not done yet. I haven't said whether I like this plot. Well, yes. It's a good way to get Gohan back up to full speed once more, after years of being pushed to the sidelines against his will. Not the background just yet. The plot involves Earth, and it is a grounded story, which is something that the Dragon Ball fandom have wanted for years. A plot which involves the humans more, and has the Saiyans somewhat on the periphery, or at least not crucial to the story. Something to establish a brand new status quo within the series, a situation where Goku, Vegeta, and now perhaps Broly could fight the big universal perils of the multiverse, whereas the rest of the team can make sure that Earth is kept in check, safe from anything that could come its way, and maybe a couple of them on occasion could join the Saiyans as support, just to change things up a little bit. And despite that little addition, Gohan would lead the charge of the Earth Brigade, and ensure that the Dragon World home is protected. And for the young man, that is a fairly acceptable job. Work-life balance and all that for him to do within the Dragon team. And hey, if it can bring Krillin, 18 and the others back into the fold in some capacity on a more regular basis, with new roles assigned for them, then great! This is something for the better. But is this something that will bring people to the theaters? Oh, well, that's the next part of this discussion, my friends. Simply put, what Dragon Ball Super Superhero is also about is trying to make the Dragon Ball Super franchise relevant for the 2020s and beyond. For years, we have been lamenting about the fact that the series has been treading water and have been doing very little in which to innovate the space that it's in. The Broly movie of 2018 and 2019 for everywhere else in the world was a flash in the pan that kept our hopes alive that there was new talent coming in to help steer the ship to have something more exciting and refreshing going forward. That movie was vital in keeping us fixated on the show and having something curious afoot for Toriyama's franchise. Sure, the manga is doing an okay job at keeping things ticking along at a decent click, and it's only getting better, to be fair, with Toyotaro able to stretch his legs more and more with every month, but that can only do so much. Because you got Super Dragon Ball Heroes, that being mocked for so long for its repetitive and lackluster nature despite its bonkers premise. So many missed opportunities. Basically, it's a vehicle where long-term artist Tadayoshi Yamamuro was put to pasture, him being seen as quite staid and recycling the old Dragon Ball tropes because he doesn't watch anything else, and you can so tell. It just looks like every Dragon Ball episode ever. But you couldn't get rid of him wholesale because he's done so much for everything. So you can just put him on a project that is less crucial to Dragon Ball's bottom line and just leave him there. Really? This next movie could have been drawn in the same style as the Broly movie, with the Shintani style being retained, and people would have lapped it up. It would have been an easy win. Also, for a decently modest budget of $10 to $12 million most likely. Toei didn't do that. Instead, we're going down a whole new model of animation, which is mostly driven by 3D visuals, something that Toei hasn't done before. Yes, there are 2D elements in there to help lift it up from being purely CG, just extra special effects, and that's something that we saw for a couple of scenes in the Broly movie, most likely testing the waters, but now it's driving the entire movie. That's quite a bold challenge, and something that will cost a lot more than was necessary. I wouldn't be surprised, honestly, if this movie ends up costing over $20 million to make and market to audiences. Could easily be 30. But what this movie is about making a statement that Dragon Ball is a part of Toei's future in terms of its position within its overall makeup of franchises. There is no denying that Dragon Ball generates a huge amount of money for the company, and by proxy Shueisha, who own the rights to Dragon Ball. Granted, having an anime would amass the most money out there for a relatively smaller amount of money, but this statement of trying out a new means of animation is a big statement, as well as a big risk. This was a big step in which to take Dragon Ball, Toei's biggest property aside from One Piece, into a bold new era of animation, and the initial steps into it were not received well. I can only imagine how disconcerting that must have felt when that first trailer dropped for Superhero. They were quick to condemn the movie and vow that they would never see it in theaters. Now though, things have changed a little bit. This movie is being worked on around the clock, I imagine, to make it look good. And the latest showcase of content was there to show everybody that they mean business and that visually speaking, this movie is going to be going off all of the time. There's never going to be a dull moment. There'll be plenty of personality in this movie, and I can instantly tell that Gamma 1 and 2 will be full of it, to ensure that the audience likes the animation and that they don't wind up being bored. I'm not their spokesperson for this, but I can imagine that the situation is a little stark for them. Limit the damage from the first trailer and make something as spectacular as you can, given your resources and time, and regardless of the cost. I just hope that it doesn't result in the company making a loss on this movie and then never making a Dragon Ball movie ever again out of fear, blaming the series and that it's not popular anymore, instead of the odd choice in undertaking this risk. Then again, what else can you do? Dragon Ball needed to push the boat one more time. The fact that this animation style was used for this big IP is not something you can ignore. If this had been done with a lesser franchise, it would have had less scrutiny on it, and Toei could have safely just accepted the feedback to hone it into using it for something later. You know, softly. Nope, Toei didn't do that. And given the backlash and apathy that Ghibli received for their attempt with Earwig and the Witch, yeah, that's quite a powerful message you are sending out to people. That you mean business, and you are prepared to bet Dragon Ball's reputation on this movie and animation style working with this brand new technology and overall makeup. From what I've seen, they are improving the visuals quickly, and the resulting project I think will not be a bad story. I just hope that that first sour experience for everyone concerned last year, as well as the overall bitterness toward holy CG projects and change, doesn't detract from the latest movie. Resurrection F made $56 million at the box office. Broly did over double that. Here's hoping that Superhero can at least land somewhere in the middle, yeah? But what do you folks think? If you'd like to hear more about what we reckon about 2022 Dragon Ball, check out this video here where Hav and I go more in depth as to what we could expect. And I shall see you in the next video. Catch you later!